I became a tattoo apprentice out of sheer luck, I think. So, I was a client of Madison Leatherman, who later became my mentor. She was working out of the back room of another studio that's local, and I'd never met her, but everyone that worked at my former job, you know, the Green Apron barista place that's a $1 billion corporation, that one, everyone that worked there had gotten, and I kid you not, it was half a dozen people had gotten tattoos from this Madison girl. And I had a tattoo that was pretty fucked up that I wanted fixed. The artist somehow tattooed it way too light. It just like fell out. There was a ghost of a tattoo left, and I didn't even know where to go from there. I didn't want to go back, but any other tattoo studio that I had been to felt hostile. Like if I went to the bathroom, I'd probably get shanked in there. Felt very gatekeepy, like I was gonna be made fun of for wanting a tattoo that wasn't American traditional. So all of a sudden I walk into this studio and I kind of get the same vibe, and then I walk into Madison's room and it's like you can hear the herald angels sing, because this sweet fairy princess of a woman is in there and she's just drawing away, and like we clicked instantly, but it still very much was like a professional relationship. But it wasn't until she moved out of that place and into her own studio, and I had gotten another tattoo from her, that we really became friends. And I just wanted to support everything that she had to offer as an artist. And even if I never got to be a part of that world, I was okay with that, because at least there was a window that I got to look into. And I was only working at the coffee store because I had gone to school for teaching. I dropped out because I was going to a private school, and once I realized how fucked up the American education system was, I didn't really know what I wanted to do. So I dropped out. I started working. I worked for about 2 years at aimless jobs, tried moving out. My sister got engaged, so she moved out of the apartment that we were splitting, and I had to move back in with my parents. I decided to do the college thing again, and the only way I could figure out how to afford something like that while still kind of feeling generally aimless in my life as a 21-year-old was through this coffee store, because they partnered with a university and I could take online courses for free as long as I worked there. I just had to pay for my own textbooks and my own laptop. So that's what I had been doing on and off for about a year and a half, and I felt like I was going nowhere. I got into a new relationship. It was mid-distance, so we only got to see each other on my days off, and there came an opportunity to support Madison's new apprentice, Kate, because she's practicing on skin for the first time. So it's called Tats for Tips. You get a tattoo, you only pay a tip with the understanding that the tattoo may not be perfect, and that's okay. But Kate's learning, and I had seen her in passing during one of my appointments with Madison, and I decided, yeah, let's do it. And I was feeling particularly discouraged at this time in my life, because in the coffee shop I was constantly surrounded by a bully, and I don't say that lightly. I don't like talking badly about people, but I even tried telling myself that it was just the environment I was in that was making me perceive her differently. But after I left, other people that I had used to work with came forward and told me about how the treatment that she gave me and behind the backs of the others suddenly was trickling down onto other people. So I was being bullied out, and for the most part I could handle it. That was no problem. But on top of the fact that my classes, anytime that I wanted to take another class that would push me forward in my degree, I suddenly was hitting a roadblock. I would need to take history of graphic design in order to take graphic design intro 1, and they didn't have a professor, so I took a different general education course for it. And suddenly, after a year and a half of this, my graduation date went from graduate in 2026 to graduate to 2028 to graduate to 2030, and I had only been doing it for a year and a half. So I had to have a conversation with myself about 2 weeks prior to this tattoo appointment I had with Kate, where I just needed to be honest with myself. Is this degree of graphic design worth it? Am I gonna be able to get my dream job? Because they won't let me take animation courses because you have to be there to be in the physical labs and learn the programs that they have on their university campus computers with professors hands-on, and I can't do that in Indiana. So graphic design was kind of like an intro while I was teaching myself animation on the side. And I was in this dead-end job where I was getting bullied. I just had to ask myself, is this worth it? Or do I need to look for a different open door? Because it felt like anytime that I wanted to excel, I was hitting a roadblock, and I was getting wonderful grades. So it wasn't the schoolwork was too difficult. It was just like I was going in a roundabout and I was stuck, and I wasn't actually making any progress, but I was putting miles on my car. So I felt like I should have experience, but all I was doing was just moving in a circle, right? So my appointment with Kate comes around, and I get a little dragon. It's very cute, and it's one of my favorite tattoos. It's probably one of my most complimented ones. And it felt like I met my twin flame, truly. She was so down to earth and inviting. And I found out that the year that she graduated from her university was the same year that I started at that same university as a freshman. We were both swimmers in high school, we were both artists, and we had so many things that were similar. She had 2 daughters at the time at home, and I grew up with 2 sisters. Later down the line, she got pregnant and she gave birth to a 3rd daughter. So it's just, there was a lot of wonderful parallels with us. We had a good discussion about being in the tattoo career as someone who identifies as a Christian, but not a Christian nationalist, like a true Christian, and how that felt, and how the Spirit moved her to this decision because she had a teaching degree, and that's what I went to school for, and why she left the school industry was the same reasons why I dropped out of college. And it just felt like everything aligned with this woman. And before, I never even considered tattooing because it felt like there were 2 different conflicts in my head. One of them was, well, I've done all this work trying to get a degree, I might as well do something with that effort. And the other one was, well, your artwork is not good enough to be permanent. There's always that inkling of a doubt. The little voice that says, well, Madison and Kate are wonderful people, but we know what the rest of the industry is like. We've been to other studios. We've seen other people work. We know what it's like. We've watched Ink Master. We know that the industry is bad and we don't want to be a part of it. Another thing I forgot to mention was, because of this weird crisis I was going through, I did anything I could to bring joy to my life. That makes it sound like I was horribly depressed. I was just lost. And I was doing the rejection theory, where you just unironically ask for anything. You don't reject yourself first. So even if it seems ambitious or a little impolite or rude, just ask and see what happens. And the amount of times that people are willing to say yes to you is far greater than the times that they're willing to say no. Kate had just divulged the information that Madison's goal was to have a tattoo studio full of women with a background in art. Women owned and operated, all of us artists, and we would do a bunch of fun art projects together and, you know, just propel each other's learning and be a good team and create this environment that people of all kinds felt really safe to be in. And I just remember feeling like that is something that I want for my life, and that's something that I want to be a part of. So I kind of mentioned it in an offhand way. Hey, if you ever want another artist, you know where to find me. And instead of getting blown off like, oh sure, right, I was met with, yeah, no, I'll talk to Madison. Excuse me? I felt very lucky in that moment. Hopeful but realistic. I figured I would have been politely blown off, but given an open door to, you know, furthering my friendship with Madison. Because at that point we had bridge the gap of being just client and artist to being like friends. 2 weeks later, Kate messages me and she's like, hey girl, she likes this idea. I just enrolled in more classes. And suddenly I'm met with this opportunity to start an apprenticeship. So I talked to Madison. I pitched my idea as a more formal suggestion rather than just Kate asking nicely for me. I ask again, and Madison tells me yes, but, and I knew that there was going to be a catch. But it ended up working out exactly how it was supposed to. Madison already had 2 apprentices. There was a new girl, one that I hadn't met yet, that Madison had just recruited. I'm gonna not say her name because she ended up leaving before her apprenticeship was over. But she was gonna start in the springtime. This is December of 22. She'll start in spring of 23. So that means that when Kate reaches her 1 year, if she's far enough along in her journey and she's good to be a full-fledged artist, that's when I can take Kate's place. But that won't be until October of 23. Cool. I can wait. I have a lot of things to do anyway. So I have my spring courses. Springtime rolls around, they just get a new lease on a new building. So I help them move. Whatever, I'm a part of this team now. Unofficially, but I'm there. And after that, they decide that they're gonna hold another event. So I show up and I help host. And, oh, I have a random Saturday off. And my boyfriend at the time is busy. I'm gonna go over and I'm gonna just hang out and I'm gonna draw. And, oh, my boyfriend isn't off until this time, but I'm off right now. So I'll go over, even though they're in opposite directions, I'll go over to the studio and then I'll drive to go see him after a couple hours of hanging out there. And little did I realize that this was kind of building a bridge that I didn't know I was building. I was showing Madison that I really wanted to be there. I had quit my job at the coffee shop. I had officially been bullied out and I quit that day. It was the ballsiest move I had ever done and the most liberating feeling I have given myself. And I felt like everything was falling apart because what do you mean? I quit my job 6 months before I'm supposed to start my apprenticeship. I have hardly anything in savings. I don't have a backup job and I just quit college. It sounds like an existential crisis, right? And I couldn't have felt more at peace with those decisions that I was making than in that moment. I did my time, I showed up, and it did pay off because the following month, my mentor said I could start training instead of waiting until October. I happened to get a replacement job at the golf course as the snack vendor, and they ended up giving me more hours by letting me run the front desk after a couple weeks of doing that. And when winter came around, it was November, and my savings had run dry. I had put in almost 100 hours on my machine, practicing tattooing straight lines in a notebook with a pen adjustment instead of needles, working on fake skin, working on drawing and learning the industry. And when December rolled around, Madison let me know that I was allowed to have my first client. And it felt like everything I had worked for, it was all worth it. I had a couple people who were willing to be my first Tats for Tips volunteer. And my first tattoo is on my dad. I ended up rambling like crazy, so I don't really have a good ending, and I'm editing a few days later. But yeah, so that's how I got my apprenticeship. A lot of it is thanks to Kate. It looks like I'm crying. I'm having an allergic reaction. I swear I'm okay. Yeah, Kate and I are actually now roommates, for those of you who don't know. And I can go into how my apprenticeship went in another video, but that's the story of like how I got it and how I got acquainted with Madison and Kate, because Genuinely, I would not be here in this industry without them, and I would probably still be pursuing an online degree